I'm a historical archaeologist and director at the Old Cahawba Archaeological Park, which is located 13 miles outside of Selma. People don't think there's anything out at Cahawba. It's history in its natural state. Just seeing in the cemetery the epitaphs on the tombstones, it's like you can hear the dead speaking to you if you just slow down, step outside, and open your eyes. The one that speaks to me the most is the one that says she did what she could. There are ruins, an earthen embankment where the railroad once ran. That's how they brought the cotton from the plantation. And every spring, descendants of the roses planted by early settlers in the 1820s come alive again, so you can see what they thought was beautiful. And you can see a portion of the moat around the 16th century Indian village and walk along the old roads lined with chinaberry trees. I guess what I really care about is that I want people to realize that history is not just dusty old archives or books. There are stories embedded in the landscape, especially in a place like Cahawba. And through the archaeology, we're bringing the stories back. Cahawba was created to be Alabama's first capital city and is preserved and protected by the Alabama Historical Commission. It was also the very wealthy county seat of Dallas County until 1866. But when Cahawba died, you know how when an older sister goes away to college, the younger sister goes into the closet and rummages through everything? Well, much of Selma's historic district was built from salvaged brick and whole buildings in some cases that were floated upriver. And there's a wonderful song by the Alabama Troubadours, and it says, "Cahawba, am I like you? Have I taken the pieces of my past to create something new?" That's Selma, the new that came out of Cahawba. Cahawba was always majority African American even in slavery times, which is unusual for a city in the South. Many of those families came to Selma, and their stories are kind of lost. Sarah J. Duncan was the pinnacle of women's power in the AME Church and owned her own printing company in Selma. Her grandfather helped to rewrite Alabama's Constitution after the Civil War. So these were really accomplished people back in 1866 who made their path from slavery to freedom. Our Road to Freedom tour follows the journey from the slave quarters to the ruins of one of the first AME churches in the state. Old Cahawba was where these people first registered to vote, started their own churches, took their own names, and built their own schools. Cahawba also had a prison for captured Union soldiers during the Civil War, and last year we hosted 100 of their descendants. Our mayor came and talked to them about his ancestor that was enslaved across the river and found an escaped POW and took him back to the plantation and hid him for months in the barn. And that was so powerful for those visitors to hear the story. And we also sat at the side of the prison and read letters written to the families. One man's letter said, "We haven't had anything to eat except pumpkins for a couple of weeks, but they were really good sweet Alabama pumpkins. I'm collecting the seeds to bring them home." But sadly, he never made it. So I tell Judy at the farmer's market this story, and she reaches back and she has this big jar of them. So she packages them up. Then Fran Pierce, who is a descendant of a Confederate guard at the prison, passes out all these little packets of pumpkin seeds to the descendants of the Union soldiers. Such a little thing, but it meant so much. It was like reconciliation between the descendants of enslaved people, Union soldiers, and Confederate soldiers. One of the ladies who was here died this last year, and in her obituary she said she was so glad that she was able to visit Cahawba and Selma before she passed away. And it's forging these emotional connections and loving a place. That's what's saving Cahawba, and I think that's what will save Selma, if we can all walk together. Since 1986, I've been waiting to restore Cahawba cemeteries. They are standing tall and you can read the messages now. You can see the cracks of where they've been broken and put back together, and they can speak to you again. Increasingly, I see signs of renewal, the restoration of the tall grass prairie, the reintroduction of mussels to the river. Cahawba's old abandoned streets are coming alive again, this time with visitors, tourists, and school groups, birdwatchers, horseback riders, cyclists. And now we're unveiling the Cahawba River Blueway, a water trail that stretches from Birmingham along the most biodiverse river in the nation. But my favorite days are still those when I get to go back to my original work as an archaeologist and recover lost stories. We can take these fractured pieces of our authentic past and build something new and amazing with them.